Record. All right, welcome to the Gateway API meeting for June 27, 2022. We've got a few new people. So before we go any further, let's see anyone who's interested, again, completely optional, but anyone who's interested in introducing yourself that hasn't had a chance before, we'd love to hear who you are and why you're here.
Yeah, I'll start. My name is Keith Maddox. I'm a maintainer for the SMI project. I also work on the Open Service Mesh project. Looking forward to chatting about Gateway API and some of the service mesh use cases and ways to go about doing work on that.
All right, and I'm Bridget Cromhout, and I'm a PM on a team supporting Keith's dev team, and I'm really excited to. I think there's got to be a Pokemon collect them all, right? If you get a chance to go to every SIG and every working group, there's some sort of badge, right? I go to SIG Network all the time, and I'm excited to come to the Gateway API meeting.
Well, welcome both, and yes, I'm sure familiar faces to many here, but I should actually, before I go any further, anyone else who might want to do an intro here? Cool. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to Gateway API meeting. Shane is actually going to be running the vast majority of today's meeting, which is why he's sharing his screen today. But I wanted to do a brief intro. We are welcoming a new maintainer to Gateway API today, and that is Shane, fittingly enough. So congrats to Shane for making it. He's been a great contributor for years now, and well-deserved. We're excited to have him officially on board as a maintainer. I know he's been active for some time. There's a PR that I filed just before this meeting. I talked with all the different maintainers. I think it's very well earned. And thank you so much for all your contributions already. And yeah, happy to formalize it. But with that, I'll hand it over to you. And yeah, you can run the rest.
Yeah.
Or actually, Nick, yeah.
I'm super glad to be to have Shane on board as a maintainer as well. Yeah, more maintainers is always better, right? And yeah, Shane, you do great work, man. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right. Then to get started, let's go ahead and start from the top. Rob, you want to talk about V050, the beta milestone, and what's left?
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So there's both a lot and a little. I can't, part of me says, oh man, we could have this done and out the door by Thursday, but that is my, just everything is perfect and everything works, perfectly between now and Thursday. Realist of me says, yeah. Yeah.
We just keep finding over rocks and finding more stuff.
Yeah. I did spend some time yesterday running through this and trying to add what feels comprehensive in terms of what's behind us and hitting that final release button. You see a couple of these issues already have PRs filed against them. We're getting close. But I think given the holidays coming up, at least in the US, well, in Canada, Canada Day on Friday, US, we've got the 4th coming up. Probably other holidays I'm missing, but I imagine this is a time that a lot of people are going to be in and out. And so the next week or so may not be as productive as other weeks of the year. So that said, I think that just to give general timeline, I've gotten this question a lot. I'm sure I'm not the only person who keeps on getting asked, like, when is this thing releasing? You're so close, like you've been so close for so long. I would like to set a rough goal of July 11 or 12, just kind of after the holiday bump. Does that seem reasonable, knowing what we know on this list? And we can go through each of the items on this list, but just wanted to have that as a high level idea here.
The blog post one is just about done, although it depends on whether or not we actually want to add anything significant for like talking about service mesh, which I don't really know. When I wrote the blog post, I wasn't like, so if we want to talk about that, there might be a little bit more to do there. Otherwise, I think it's just about just about ready.
Yeah.
Conflict guidance when HTTP route refers to an invalid backend.
This is a good one.
Oh, this one's
I
been sitting around
apologize
for a
for
while.
starting this issue. Yeah, we've had some great discussion on this one. I think Nick, you're the one who. No, okay,
Sorry, do you want me to
I've
stop
lost
on that?
track. There's been no.
It's gotten quite conversational.
Yes, it has. I missed the last two comments, but I think what I remember reading, the last comment I read was Nick's, and that was that 500s were preferable. I think everyone was falling behind the option 2 I gave to start this thread. Nick, you've been commenting more than I have on this. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, I think so. This comes down to sort of that general philosophy thing. I mean, generally we have the philosophy, hey, we should try not to break existing configs. But I think we need to be really, really careful with that, because trying not to break existing configs can very easily turn into the API must only be used in this very specific way. And so that's why I'm generally in favor of take whatever the config is, and if that's a broken config, then you get a broken config. Because, and in this case, that means that if that means that's option 2. And that's because, if you've asked for a backend to have 50% of the traffic and that backend is invalid for some reason, because no reference grant, because there's no endpoints, because there's a bunch of different reasons it could be, then you get that percentage of, you get whatever the weight of that thing is as 500s. In my mind, that matches up well, because it's like, that's what you've actually asked for. Like, maybe it's not what you want, but it's what you've asked for. And we can't, I think that trying to impute, you probably don't want to do this in the actual API is a mistake. I think the API should say, this is what you've asked for, this is what you get. And then it's up to implementers to be like, to do stuff to be like, if you're supplying an invalid backend, to try and call that out and, and stop that from happening, rather than making it so that when you have some config that's not great, that we try and rescue you from yourself. Yeah, and so that's why
I think that makes sense. What I was already seeing on that made me think that we had largely reached consensus. And the last two comments agree with your comment, which makes me think we basically have. So I think this is what this needs. It needs someone to follow up and actually update the spec based on these comments. But it seems like we may be at a point where we understand what's needed. Is that fair?
That makes sense to me. I guess as the person who has been the most strident, let's be charitable about this, it probably should be on me to walk the talk here and actually update the spec.
Cool, sounds good.
Thanks. Like a plan. All right, so that covers that one. This one's one or two things maybe. Clarify behavior behind multiple query parameters. I think this is the one I commented on. Yeah, so this one is just a documentation issue, more or less, I think. And unless somebody has something else to say on this one, the idea is that with HTTP header matches, we say that anything past a first match of a name, like basically gets ignored. So if like you have a header and you have like 3 of them with the same name, everything after the first two or the first one gets ignored. Kind of weird, but the parameters ref works kind of similarly, but isn't documented that way. So Chris wants to go ahead and get that updated so the documentation is consistent. So unless anybody has something to say about that one, I would say that one's pretty close. I think he already put in a PR for it.
Yeah, Steve put in a PR. I spent a little bit of time looking at it. I got distracted. Shameless plug. I'd say if anyone has time to do reviews here, we have a huge review backlog. So any help you can, don't feel like you're underqualified to review code. We just, as a maintainer looking at this, if I see someone else that's reviewed it and says, hey, this looks good to me, that really helps me as a sanity check. I hate to be the only person or Nick, or, you know, it's or Shane or anyone, just, you know, when you're the one person reviewing the PR, it's always better when there's just someone else, another set of eyes confirming that, yeah, this does make sense. So the very high level, you know, 5-minute approach I took, this looked pretty close to me, but I need to take a closer look, or someone else can too. But thanks, Steve, for, I don't know if Steve is on this call, but thanks for getting this in so quick.
Yep, some documentation, some validation. All right, cool. So not too far along on that one. So far so good. I think I saw you put this one in this morning. So this one is, this one's just a little bit of lifting work where we got to move things around and copy things over. Right.
I tried to make this something that was approachable for as many people as possible. So if you're looking for a way to get started in Gateway API, a lot of these things are really, hey, we need to move these things over here. We need to rename this stuff. I'm hoping it's an all right place to get started. The downside is that it's relatively time sensitive, and that it's blocking this release. And the other downside is that some of these things in this list will conflict with each other. I've tried to make that as minimal as possible, but there's a chance you'll have to do some rebasing if you choose to take one of these on and someone else takes a different one on, and yeah, whatever. So heads up. But again, if anyone has some time to take this on and really wants to help get this release out, these are good opportunities here. And I tried, I'm not trying to say I have a complete list here of everything that needs to be updated in the docs, but I think this is a good starting point and would make it an acceptable release ready documentation, at least.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely a larger issue that the way that we have done the doc structure at the moment does not work very well with having, we kind of assumed when we built the doc structure originally that all the resources would be at the same API version at the same time, which is now no longer the case. So like, yeah, and so there's definitely there's a big chunk of work to be done that Meha was looking into us for us. I haven't talked to her for a while, so she may still be. But basically, we want to version the whole site the same way Cube does, via the bundle version, the release version, and then that should make some of this stuff a little easier to handle. But right now, it's going to be a bit funky how we do this. Until we fix that. But I think having something is better than being like, oh, we can't do this yet until we version the whole site, because that's going to take a while.
Yeah, it doesn't need to block the release, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so if anybody's interested in kind of picking that one up, we're probably looking at a turnaround in the next roughly week. We'd like to see like a PR, so let us know, ping us on the comments.
Yeah, ping us in the comments.
Yeah, and
I was going to say,
with that one, feel free to volunteer for just one of those. Sorry, that was all my comment. Like, you don't need to it's split into different bullet items, and yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, please feel free to, if you see me online on Slack, that means that I am ready to answer questions about this sort of stuff as well. Right, that goes for any of these. Yeah, I remember that also that I am in Australia, so I am online in most of yours like afternoon/evening.
I feel like between Nick, Shane, and myself, we have near 24/7 maintainer coverage, 24/5. Just the different time zones we've got going on. More maintainers welcome, but we can try and spread that time zone coverage around.
Yeah, exactly, Bridget.
Last one here. Was there a PR for this one?
Spencer? Yeah, Spencer has a PR for this.
Okay.
This one is just needing review. I think someone already reviewed it and he's responded. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think I was intending
Nick,
to get to reviewing this one next.
Yeah.
Nick, you have taken a look at it.
Yeah. I was like, looks okay, but yeah, CI wasn't passing. So, but I think
Roger that. Okay.
Cool.
So probably pretty far along on that too. So July 14th, right? Is that what you said?
So yep. I said July 12 as a target. Okay. That gives us I hate to skip ahead in the agenda, but I think this is a really short thing. The next meeting would fall, I think, on the 4th in the US. It is a holiday for what I would imagine is a lot of the attendees on this call. I know I won't be at the meeting. I'm guessing Shane won't.
I won't be there. Yeah.
But if anyone is
With any luck, I'll
interested in
be on
having a
both.
meeting, yeah, sounds good. Sounds nice. Yes, so if anyone is interested in having a meeting, you're very welcome to. But if I don't hear that, I think we can go ahead and cancel.
I can make a meeting, but I think that I would rather not be the only one in the meeting. I've done that before, and it's very sad.
If you do, just make sure you record it.
when I was doing the LTS working group, I ran a series of like APAC meetings, and I think it was about 3 months where I would dial in for 10 minutes and sit there looking at my screen sadly and record the meeting.
It'll just be an hour of Nick's typing keys. Just
yeah, exactly.
All right.
We're wasting time.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. Aiming for July 12th. So we're aiming for July 12th. I think that sounds reasonable.
Yep. I think we should front up, and if we all agree on that, we'll take a lazy consensus moment. But then, if we do agree on that, I think we should just update the milestone and put the date on there. GitHub milestones let you put dates.
Yep. Great
idea. That. So lazy consensus. Just ask everybody in here and then put it on the milestone, or what?
Yep, exactly. I'm going to give people count of 5 to object. Please feel free to object in the chat or by speaking. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, good.
Yeah, I'll update that later.
Excellent.
All right.
Cool.
So next is Keith. Some of you may have seen his email and SIG network and chat. I think he posted in the chat maybe as well. But go ahead, Keith. Tell us about your draft proposal for the work group for Mesh.
Sure. So as many of y'all know, SMI has been a CNCF project looking at kind of a common API for service meshes and general traffic thingies in Kubernetes, kind of around the same time as Gateway API actually, but looking at the API services of both projects and a lot of the fantastic work that this group has done with Gateway API. Talking to people across the community, there's been some interest, a good bit of interest actually, in coming together and really firming up some of the use cases, some of the mesh use cases for Gateway API. There are little references here and there within the specification itself. And so looking to put together a group, a place for people to have conversations and such, specifically for mesh use cases. The reason why a separate working group has kind of been suggested or been pursued is because you don't want to distract from a lot of the great work that's happening here for the north-south ingress egress use cases, and so this would have naturally kind of report into kind of Gateway API. Gateway API would still own all the resources and such. We'd just be exploring use cases and proposing patterns or modifications for mesh use cases upstream. Wanted to get a pulse on how folks here feel about that before moving any further. So yeah, kind of opening the floor to hear what folks think.
Well, for me, love it. Excited to see the output. I would love to be involved, but my bandwidth is too low. With all the other stuff I got going on, but yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what you'll come up with. I think it's a great idea. I know that we've definitely had lots of conversations about how this or that or this thing would be served by in the mesh use case. And yeah, it'd be good to really get some good use cases and for you all to say, hey, we think it should work like this. We've tried to make sure that there's spots for it in lots of places. That's why there's references. We've sort of tried to be like, oh, that sounds like something Mesh might want. But yeah, like I'd love to see it. I think I'm only supposed to +1, but I would +10. So.
Yeah, I'll follow up and say I agree with what Nick's saying. I mean, I'm really excited for this. I looked at the proposed chairs of this group. You've got an awesome list of people working on this. I am pumped for where this is going to go. Like Nick said, I know as we were building this, we tried to leave holes, or like maybe this could work for mesh, but so far Gateway API has been led with a lot of ingress focused implementers. So I am not a mesh expert. I look at it and say, yeah, I think this could work. But I am really excited to get some more mesh experts really showing how this API could fit. I think this working group is a great idea. Let us know how we can support you. Yeah, I'm excited.
Do you have
go ahead, Travis.
Do you have a channel yet that we can watch in the Kubernetes Slack?
Not at the moment, but assuming this goes through, that would be something to discuss and figure out what the best form of communication would be for that. But I imagine that would be kind of customary for working groups.
Yeah, I'll be there. I have ingress and mesh kind of in my purview, so I'm excited to join.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar spot to Shane. My primary focus is ingress, but being my project doesn't work without the console service mesh, so that's obviously near and dear to my heart. And of course, Mike Morris, who's one of the proposed chairs of the group, is actually one of my engineers as well. I think the only caution I would say is I would like to see it be such that the working group would bring GEPs to the group, to this group, and then the overall Gateway API community can work on reviewing the gaps and conversing about them and come up with a final proposal that we can get consensus on and move forward with. So I think I'd just be cautious about with a group coming in that hasn't been involved with this API before, going about doing things, ways that end up being different or inconsistent with how we've wanted to do things and tried to do things historically here. So end up with like weird inconsistencies or something. So as long as we kind of follow that process of having bring GEPs here or pre-GEP, but I think that would work well.
Yeah, I think Bridget put there in the chat a good point there, is that working groups don't own any code or API surface by definition of what they are. So the existing GET process, what kind of spurred some of this conversation actually was the I think it's GEP 713 policy attachment. And so I imagine that a lot of the modifications or proposed additions to the Gateway API spec would take place in a similar fashion to that. So yeah, I'm on board with that.
Yeah, I definitely think, side note, since you mentioned policy attachment, that is definitely an area that needs further exploration from anyone who is interested. I think we could really do with like some sample implementations and stuff like that talked about. I think that's a framework for a framework rather than an actual functional thing at the moment. It's on my to-do list, but like how it is with to-do lists, they get full.
Yeah, Auth Z. I've been looking at policy attachment for Auth Z use cases for a while. So as soon as I get a chance to, I'm going to be talking about that with anybody I can, because that's a personal pursuit of mine.
Roger that. So is there anything else you need to like enable you, or are you pretty much just ready to go?
Yeah, based on the documentation in SIG network or in Kubernetes, general Kubernetes community lifecycle documents, the next step would just be to create a PR into the Kubernetes community repo with this information, and then we'd be good to go.
Yeah, let us know if we can be helpful, and we'll join the channel as soon as it's up.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Candace, you're next. Has anyone ever discussed plans for has anyone ever discussed plans for a general purpose gateway API operator? I've heard this talked about before. Do you want to go ahead and just talk? And is Candace in here?
Yes, yes,
Go
I'm in
ahead.
here. I had wanted to mention to Keith, though, that I saw this proposal earlier today. I work for Red Hat, and somebody brought this proposal to our meeting today, which is the meeting is, there's a lot of mesh guys in the meeting. I'm not a mesh person myself. I work on the network edge at Red Hat, but just wanted to mention that there was some interest from Red Hat today. But this topic is, so I'm new to SIGs and I'm new to working sort of, I've never worked in open source before. Been at Red Hat for about 1.5 years now. And this is the first time I've been involved in a SIG. So one of the things that we want to do is, so we in OpenShift we have an Ingress implementation, an Ingress operator implementation, and we want to move from it being strictly HA proxy and Kubernetes Ingress to something more with Gateway API and another implementation. So we were going to be starting with a specific implementation, looking into a specific implementation like Istio probably. But what our project managers have recently sort of seen how many different implementations there are of Gateway API recently, and have asked us to look into comparing some of the implementations, and maybe we would in the end offer more than one, sort of in a pluggable way. So it turns out that we might want to approach that. We're just in the beginning stages of planning, but we might want to approach this as a sort of a pluggable operator that would work for different implementations of Gateway API, but firstly works with Gateway API, and then has some customizations based on different implementations of Gateway API. And that's the extent that I've gotten to so far in terms of our discussion. And we know that there's a contour operator. That was something that we're kind of looking at, that Dane Hansen worked on for some time. And that's something that we could use as a base, although we decided in the end that we probably wouldn't choose contour. But I guess what else did I forget to mention? Yeah, a vanilla Gateway API operator that would support more than one Gateway API implementation, so that our customers could pick and choose.
Am I understand? I'm sorry, I may be misunderstanding. It sounds like maybe you're talking about like controller machinery that could then back into any proxy. Like any proxy could kind of be plugged into controller machinery that would allow them to. Is that what you're getting after, or does that not sound right?
No, that doesn't exactly sound like it. In OpenShift we have an Ingress operator, so it would be to some extent like the Ingress operator. Ingress operator works with an Ingress class, and works between an Ingress class and an HA proxy router. That's how we implement Ingress. But we want to instead of using ingress operator, and HA proxy, we'd be sort of in the ingress operator spot, we'd be plugging in a gateway API operator that could work with a bunch of different implementations of gateway API.
I think one thing to consider is, you've got here listed that, Contours has got an operator and Istio has one. Console for API Gateway, we're looking pretty seriously at implementing one. I can't obviously speak for others, but if you're trying to if you implement a generic one, then if an implementation has its own operator that handles gateway API, how would those interact, or would it cause a problem for that implementation from the third-party implementation, like ours or Istio's or Contours?
Yeah, I would. So can I? Did you want to respond to that, Candace, or do you mind if I go first?
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So yeah, I think for contour operator's job is to set up the individual sort of contour instances that fulfill individual gateways. I think that one of the smaller problems with the idea of having something more generic is that because we kind of left it a little bit up to the implementation exactly sort of how they build their bits that say reconcile a gateway class and gateways, and exactly do the gateways get merged, or do they spin up different data planes and a few other things like that. It's going to be tricky to build something that would do lots of different ones. I think that it would be it's definitely possible if you have like a limited set of options that work in reasonably similar ways. You could build an operator that would sort of let you pick between them. But I think that the way that I would think about this is like, so if this is an operator, what resources is it reconciling, and what happens when you get one of those? So it sounds like maybe you want to reconcile gateway classes, and then when you create a gateway class, like you pick up that this is a gateway class of like a contour type or an Istio type, and then you provision the gateway controller deployment to sort of satisfy that gateway class. And if that's the case, then that seems like a reasonably straightforward thing. But and then it's the implementation's job to handle like the gateways inside the gateway class. But that would be if I was looking to build something like this, that would be how I would think of it. Like which pieces of the puzzle reconcile which Kubernetes resources, and like which bits do you want to be able to switch out is how I would start. I think I know that for obviously I'm a maintainer on Contour, but I'm also a maintainer on Envoy Gateway, and for Contour, because we decided that a gateway equals an Envoy deployment, that meant that the Contour operator sort of will manage satisfying your gateway requests by setting up Envoy infrastructure for you. In Envoy Gateway, we're actually doing it slightly differently, that the Envoy data plane matches to the gateway class. So we're going to be leaving the creation of the Envoy Gateway deployment to the human for now. And then so there is a place where you could put like a layer above the top that says, hey, there's you created a gateway class that you've marked as being an Envoy Gateway one in some fashion, TBD. And then that operator would then take that gateway class and stand up the Envoy Gateway installation that would then stand up further envoys to satisfy the gateway thing, if you see what I'm saying. So the key part is that in all of that, like I said, the sort of key distinction is that you've got that you got to figure out like which programs, which containers, which controllers are going to reconcile which resources, and that's how you would build out the thing. And I think right now, I don't think a lot of people have thought too much yet to answer the exact question. I don't think we've talked too much about a generic gateway API operator because people have been doing things in such different ways. And we're not really sure what the commonalities are between the ways people are doing things yet, because although we've got 12 implementations, like we haven't spent a lot of time sort of comparing and contrasting how everyone's doing everything yet. I think spending some time doing that exercise, I would dearly love to read like a report of like all 12 implementations and how they all manage the different bits, reconciling which bits. I I would like to know that information, but I do not have the bandwidth to do the analysis myself. So yeah, I would definitely love for someone to do that. And it feels like that would be something that you would need to do to figure out what you're talking about. Is that an answer to your question? Or?
Yes, we have started doing that to some extent. We probably won't do like all 12 implementations, but we'll choose the ones that that are more likely to have to have acceptance for a variety of different criteria that we'll apply. And which we may not even know yet. So we know some of them, but not all of them. But I was wondering if anyone had ever, started doing something like that. And I guess it looks like if they haven't really talked about it in this meeting. So, it's worth seeing if someone else is doing something like this first before we try to embark on such a project. So thank you.
I just make one quick comment is, I've already got customers that are using OpenShift and have console API gateway, my product, deployed, so, and like I said, we're looking at doing an operator down the road. So, obviously from my bias perspective, I'd be concerned about, compatibility issues with if Red Hat implements a generic controller for gateway API, would that be locking other implementations out, like console or Istio or whoever, Kong. So.
No, if you have it running already, I can't see what we would do that would break it. So what do you mean? It's something that's on your schedule, or you already have it available?
No, we haven't implemented an operator yet, but we will be. So I'm no expert on controllers and operators here, so maybe there wouldn't be an issue having both in the environment or something. So I'll have to defer. I'd have to defer to others. That was just the concern I had raised. So
yeah, I don't think it would have any impact on a custom operator that you guys would put together.
Yeah, I put a question on the chat. This is a question to Rob. Is that true that in GKE there are already 4 different kinds of gateways class? And you guys have 4 different controller, or one single can take care of all?
It is a single controller, but we do have different gateway classes. For example, one for XLB, one for ILB, and then I think we have a couple multi-cluster gateway classes. But it is a single controller.
So there are some examples of that. Okay, thanks.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's what
I think.
Sorry, you go. You
go first. You go first.
Okay. So I was going to say, and that's what I meant by like we left a lot of latitude for implementations to do things in different ways. And that's why I'm like, we kind of got to wait and see what everyone's doing before we can make too many sort of find the commonalities. Sorry, Shane.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I was just going to suggest that it seems like there could be potentially a lot more that could be discussed on this, but at least in my mind, there's a lot of question marks. This might be a good candidate, Candice, for a discussions on our discussion board, where we get maybe like a deeper definition of what generic gateway API operator means. Mm-hmm. And then we can start digging into some of these kind of like each person with their implementation can start kind of talking about how that relates to their implementation. And we can kind of have a longer async discussion, because I feel like there's a lot here. Are you up for that? Maybe putting in a discussion for it?
Yes, let me go back to my team first, and it'd be better if we had some more stuff to discuss first. I just really wanted to bounce it off and see if anyone else was doing anything, and glad to know all the comments that this group has mentioned so far. So thanks for giving me the chance to bounce it off you here, and I'll come back and let you know what the plans are, and if I have any good docs that we come up with, I'll share them.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think for right now we don't have anybody that's really treading these waters, so come back around to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one, who's this guy? So I just wanted to see, is there somebody other than Bobby Tables? He doesn't seem to be responsive right now that can help us with this.
So I know he's really busy. There's a summit that he's running tomorrow inside Google. So I'm assuming that's why I know he's busy to begin with, but I know he's got a big thing coming on this week. I can try and ping him as well. I'm sure there are other people, but he's just who I happen to ping most often about these things.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know who else could do it. So I figured if somebody knew real quick, I would just ask on the meeting who else can do this. Specifically updating the Netlify configs. So if anybody knows, great. If not, I'll follow up on this async.
There's yeah, I can't remember. There's a Slack group that is supposed to be the one you mentioned for these questions, but I can never remember what it is. I know that's not helpful, but there are other people. I just don't know who they are. So sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fair. Maybe this is one of those things where I can like ping the world and get like famous, just for like pinging everyone in Slack. No, I don't want to do that. All right. Next thing.
Did you try Contribx? Sorry, did you try Contribx?
No, I didn't. That's a good point. So yeah, I'll go check with Contribx.
Oh, like I would love to do that, but I'm not sure what exactly we need to do. Like this is my first meeting, but I was quite keen about network. I was just following the discussions. So
welcome. I didn't really catch it.
Oh, my name is Rishikesh. Like, yeah, I'm right now working in Confluent as an intern, but I worked before, like maybe as an infrastructure engineer for around 4 years, and quite into maybe what you can say traffic space for interest. And I just noticed that you're looking for like, so the work group mesh discussion found quite interesting, and I thought it would be a good start to dig in because that's like, I guess, a new thing starting off. But as soon as you said you're looking for something, maybe I think it will be a good start if I could pull up the task, but I'm not sure what exactly is the task.
Gotcha. Yeah, welcome to the group. Cool. I guess I didn't exactly get if there's anything that we were trying to get out of that. What was the?
I think he was looking for a way to
apologies.
contribute, and I think this specific issue is mostly resolved. Well, it's resolved as far as we can take it, and we need we need higher level help from outside of this project for the last step or two.
Yeah, we're looking for people with CI admin, and there's a very limited set of people with that one. But if you'd like to contribute, we definitely can follow up with you. Catch us in the SIG Gateway Gateway API Slack channel on Kubernetes Slack after this, and just say, hey, I'm looking for something to do, and we'll have a thread with you about it. Sound good?
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks.
I've tried to make a few. There are a few good first issues. I think not many. We've been pretty bad at setting up issues for success there. So yeah, that is definitely something that like I could probably spend some time and sit down with someone to go through and find some good first issues and tidy them up a bit. So definitely like we haven't like those of us who have been maintainers, we've been kind of so busy with doing the maintainer stuff that we haven't had much time to do the proper community building stuff. So if anyone can help with any of that, then that would be really appreciated. Probably the faster way to do that is going to be to get one of us on a call and sort of walk through walk through some issues and try and find some ones that are good first issues.
Yeah, more than happy to do that. Probably I will drop a message in a Slack group, and if somebody's free today, tomorrow, whatever, anywhere time on calendar, more than happy to jump on a call. I'm sorry to disturb the meeting in between.
No, not at all. Not a problem. No, very cool. Thank you for joining in, and we'll definitely follow up with you.
Yes, thanks.
All right, last one. Rob Scott, implementations, please add support info. Oh yeah.
This is actually a reference to your PR, but I wanted to make sure it didn't get missed. I love this idea from you. We've gotten several support requests on Gateway API, and Gateway API repo is not really where we want to be supporting implementations. So one idea, I think this actually came from Shane, was in your implementation information, actually link out to, if you want support with this implementation, here's where you go. I think this is great. I'm glad Shane added it for Kong. I think, Shane, your other idea was to add something like in the issue template itself.
Yeah, I think I added that, and that's merged now.
Okay.
So I think if you go try to create a new issue, oh wait, that one's not done. I also updated it in the documentation, which tells you to create an issue. But yeah, this was one I forgot, so thank you for reminding me. But I think we just wanted to kind of ask everybody, like, hey, since we do seem to get at least a few issues where people are like, Gateway API, this is where I put in my issue, and it's not quite the right place. It'd probably be helpful to put stuff like this, like everybody go to your implementation page and just put something that says, hey, here's where you can get support for this implementation. But also it would be kind of cool if we could have an issue template kind of remind people like, hey, this isn't for specific implementation support if you need that, and then link to the implementations page. So
I'll update the implementation page for console and put our support resources in there.
cool, sounds good.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, I think it just helps to speed
good
things
idea.
up for people.
Good idea, Shane.
Thank you. So yeah, just async whenever you guys get time, please add those. I think it's helpful, and like we'll kind of get people to the right place quicker. Does anybody else have any last minute agenda items? We still have 9 minutes, so if there's any other topics of conversation, we have some time. Otherwise, we can go home early.
I would. This is John. I would like to ask some L4 questions if anybody can answer.
Go for it.
Boy.
So we're looking at implementing this on L4 gateway and looking at documentation and trying to decipher it. Do we need to implement an L4 load balancer, or could we choose the existing network load balancer and AWS and Google and just do a gateway API into it? I wasn't quite sure of the interaction there.
Personally, sorry, you go, Shane. I talk too much.
Okay, well, no, you go ahead first. I want to hear what you have to say, and then it might be the same thing. Go ahead.
Okay, for sure. Personally, my thought has always been that the layer 4 resources, TCP route and UDP route, will end up basically kind of replacing the service type load balancer use cases. So in cloud providers, yeah, that I would expect that those will be implemented using the sort of the network load balancers that are used at the moment when you do service type load balancer. And that similarly for other sort of where you don't have a cloud provider available that can give you one of those, that it will be something that would give you a service type load balancer should be able to do your layer 4. I know that we've been asked a lot in Contour to do layer 4 support for using sort of the Envoy path. And it is really not trivial once you have your data path running as a container inside the cluster to do layer 4 stuff. It's super hard because of layer 4 things. So yeah, I guess yes, it would be my short answer. Shane, do you have anything to add?
No.
So the way we're looking at the gateway API is a way for us to do some interesting things between the network load balancer and the service interface at layer 4. So we can do sticking our own data path to do traffic manipulation at this L4 layer. Yeah.
Right. So I think did you log a use case for us? Yeah. And that the use case you were talking about was like using a gateway and with TCP routes to kind of describe the please make me a DMZ load like use case roughly. Like if we were talking
roughly.
Like
yeah,
that's what
it was when I put in the Slack channel, was like we're trying to figure out how to do session resiliency at layer 4.
Right.
So the network load balancers today, I think in AWS and Google, if the session changes, if the pod dies, then the session gets killed. We want to be able to, we want to make it, we want to redirect it to another pod and do some stitching ourselves, so it looks like it's
right
to the end user. It's continued on, and it gives you more resilience, both totally. For just for failures, but also for scaling events, i.e. the sort of the normal cycle of the day. It comes at 5 o'clock and you have, 4 pods, all 10% of the load. I want to kill a couple of them, but I don't want to go and have customers go, oh, all my sessions died. Why did that happen?
Yeah, it sounds it sounds, yeah, it sounds to me like it'd be hard, to be honest. But I also think that the thing that I would say there is the layer 4 resources are severely underspec'd at the moment. We haven't spent much time thinking about them. We haven't, they've got some basic stuff in there that we kind of just were like, oh, that kind of seems about right. But like, there's definitely, that's why it was really awesome of you to look at that use case. I think there's definitely a lot of work we've got to do around doing layer 4 stuff. But right now we just haven't had enough implementations doing layer 4 things to sort of try it out and sort of be like, what do we need? So if you want to work on an implementation that does some cool layer 4 stuff, like, and tell us about what you need in order to be able to do that, then awesome. Like, I think that the thing there is to start building it out. There should be like quite a few places where you can do some extensions, and if not, so one way that you could do this is, it is 100% expected in the API that if you want to try something out, it's okay for you to make your own like copy of TCP route, like, John's cool TCP route, and sort of change it and sort of say like, this, we think it should work like this, and we've done a controller, and this is how it works, and this is what happens. And then sort of take that spec and be like, okay, I'd like to bring that back to the broader project and say, okay, please add these structs like we did in this one, and please see this is our implementation, and we've proved that it works here. Right? Like, that's kind of always been expected, that people would run ahead of like what the official types are, and one way to do that is to just build out your one that has the bits you want and show us how it works. And then sort of come back and say, this is what I want to do, and this is what I did in my one, and this is how it worked, and this is what went well, and this is what didn't. Yeah, I appreciate that's quite a bit of work, and so like, if you don't want to do that, I get it. But like,
no, it's we're starting to look at doing some of the stuff. So, but the way we think of L4 is more of a raw socket rather than a TCP socket or a UDP socket.
Right,
it's a little bit tricky.
Is that more? But I mean, if you're not talking about the sort of the layer 4 sort of session management / layer, like the layer 4 protocol, like, is it that you really want an IP route? Right, like,
yeah. Well, yeah, I think so, because it's,
if you want to be able to slice purely on the layer 3 things and not on the layer 4 stuff, then I think it's 100% fine for you to propose like, what if we were to have an IP route, right? Like, and the gateway then describes like, if that was the case, how would that work? We have talked a little bit about that. I think right now you kind of get hung up because port is required. And you can't say,
I remember those discussions. Yes.
Yeah. So that's the probably the hang up to having an IP route now. But if you were to do that, like, equally, it's okay for you to sort of fork the gateway definition and say like, here's how we changed the gateway definition. Here's what we did, and here's what we want to do, and here's why we want to do it. Like with having an IP route. And so I, like, personally, I would love to see, like, if you have things you want to change about the API, like, walk us through like what you would change about the API and why, like, and that then helps us all be on the same page about what we're changing. I think one of the things we found with the port discussion is like, oh, but how does that interact with what we're already doing and stuff like that? So, there's some, I think that one of the reasons we made the port stay required for beta is that changing a required field to an optional one is not a breaking API change, but changing an optional field to a required one is a breaking API change. So it's easier to sort of change that later than it's not. But
we're running close to time here, so I just wanted to. It sounds like the next steps here, John, sound like you kind of be trailblazing in this. So this might be a place where, like, we can provide some support and guidance and stuff like that. Might be another good place for a discussion, because you could get pretty deep into this. Is there anything else that, like, does that sound good? Does like following up async sound like reasonable? Like, the GitHub discussion support is usually a good place for these longer threads.
Either GitHub or Slack, which one is preferable?
Slack can, and this is, everybody's gonna have a different opinion on this. My personal opinion is that things disappear into Slack, but GitHub discussions are basically just issues that don't need to be in milestones. Like it's questions, it's, you know, that kind of thing. So that would be, that's why I suggest it. But I think, you know, do whatever feels right to you.
No, I'm happy about either. So
Yeah, I think a Slack thread is probably going to generate a discussion anyway, like a GitHub discussion at some point anyway. And I 100% agree with Shane that the good part about the GitHub discussions is they're there forever. So, you know, it means we don't end up losing the context when your Slack scroll back kind of becomes hard to search.
okay. Thank you all. I appreciate that input.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think we're a minute past, so that concludes today's meeting. Just a reminder that we're not trying to do next week's meeting. If you want to do it, ping in the Slack channel that you want to, and we can get something working. Otherwise, everybody have a great week.
Great. See you.
Same to you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
So good to see so many people as well. Thanks, you all.